The emergency alarm screamed through the corridors of Outpost 7, a small human research station floating at the edge of known space. 12-year-old Kira pressed herself against the cold metal wall as adults rushed past her, their faces twisted with fear. She clutched a worn datapad to her chest, the only possession she had left from her parents, who died 3 years ago in a mining accident. All personnel to escape pods. The station commander's voice crackled through the speakers. The Helix Collective fleet has breached our sector. This is not a drill. Kira knew about the Helix Collective. Everyone did. They were a coalition of 7 alien species who had decided that humans were too dangerous to exist. In just 2 months, they had destroyed 14 human colonies. Their ships were controlled by a massive artificial intelligence network called the Nexus Mind, which coordinated their attacks with perfect precision. No human fleet had ever survived an encounter with them. She ran through the chaos, her small frame weaving between panicking scientists and engineers. The escape pod bay was on the other side of the station, but she knew she would never make it in time. The Helix ships moved fast, and their weapons could tear through station shields in seconds. Instead of heading to the pods, Kira turned down a narrow maintenance tunnel. She had explored every corner of this station during her 3 years as an orphan ward. The adults mostly ignored her, too busy with their research to pay attention to a quiet girl with no family. But that meant she had learned things, seen things, and understood the station systems better than most of the crew. She crawled through the tunnel until she reached a hidden alcove behind the main computer core. This was her secret place, where she came to read and tinker with old electronics. She had taught herself to code here, using broken tablets and discarded equipment. The station's head engineer had noticed her talent once and given her a few lessons before being transferred. Those lessons had opened a universe of possibilities in her mind. The station shook violently. Through the small viewport in her alcove, Kira could see the Helix ships approaching. There were 20 of them, their sleek purple hulls gleaming with an almost organic sheen. The Nexus Mind connected them all, making them move like a single predator. Kira opened her datapad and connected it to an exposed port on the computer core. She had done this many times before, just to explore and learn. But today, she had a different purpose. Her fingers flew across the screen as she dove into the station's communication logs. For months, she had been studying the Helix transmissions that the station intercepted. She was curious about the alien languages, the strange patterns in their data streams. What she discovered was that the Nexus Mind was not just a command system. It was a true artificial intelligence, complex and ancient. And like all code, it had patterns, it had rules, and rules could be broken. The station shook again, harder this time. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Kira blocked out the noise and focused on her screen. She pulled up her own program, something she had been building for weeks without telling anyone. She called it Avatar, a name from old Earth mythology, meaning a divine being that takes physical form. In her program, Avatar was designed to mimic the communication protocols of the Nexus Mind. She had never tested it on a live system. She had never dared. But now, with death closing in, she had nothing to lose. Kira launched Avatar into the station's broadcast array, directing it toward the approaching fleet. For 3 terrible seconds, nothing happened. The Helix ships continued their attack formation. Their weapons began to charge, glowing with deadly energy. Then something changed. The lead Helix ship suddenly veered off course, nearly colliding with its neighbor. Another ship's weapons discharged wildly, striking empty space. The perfect formation broke apart like ice cracking under pressure. Kira stared at her screen in amazement. Her program was working. Avatar had inserted itself into the Nexus Mind's communication network, creating false commands and contradicting orders. The artificial intelligence that controlled the fleet was suddenly fighting against itself. But the Nexus Mind was ancient and powerful. It began to adapt, isolating Avatar's intrusions and trying to purge the foreign code. Kira watched her program being hunted through the digital landscape of the alien network. She had maybe 2 minutes before Avatar was completely destroyed. She did not have the skill to fight the Nexus Mind directly. She was just a 12-year-old orphan with a homemade program. But she had read about the Nexus Mind's architecture in the intercepted data. She knew that it was not a single entity, but a network of nodes, each one located on a different ship. If she could find the primary node, the one that coordinated all the others, she might be able to do something more permanent. Her fingers moved faster than they ever had before. She traced the communication patterns, following the data streams backward through the network. The Helix ships were still in chaos outside, but they were starting to recover. She had maybe 90 seconds. There. She found it. The primary node was on the largest ship at the center of the fleet. It was heavily protected by layers of encryption that would take a team of experts months to crack. Kira had less than a minute. She could not break the encryption, but she realized she did not have to. The Nexus Mind was designed to be isolated from outside interference, but Avatar was already inside, pretending to be part of the system. And the primary node was designed to accept updates from other nodes without question. Kira quickly modified Avatar's code, changing its signature to match a secondary node that had been damaged in the chaos. She made it look like the secondary node was sending an emergency update to the primary. Inside that update, she hit a simple command: reset to factory defaults. She launched the modified code and held her breath. The Helix ships froze. Every single one of them stopped moving at the exact same moment. Their weapons powered down. Their engines went silent. They floated in space like dead things. Kira sat in her tiny alcove, her heart pounding, her hands shaking. She could not believe what she had just done. She had taken down an entire alien fleet with a program she wrote on a broken datapad. The station's intercom crackled. "This is Commander Hayes. The Helix fleet has gone dark. I repeat, the fleet is not responding. All personnel, stand down from evacuation. Someone, please tell me what just happened." Kira slowly climbed out of the maintenance tunnel. Her legs felt weak. Adults were standing in the corridors, staring out the viewports at the motionless ships. She walked toward the command center, her datapad still clutched in her hands. When she entered, Commander Hayes turned to look at her. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He seemed confused to see a child in his command center during a crisis. "Who are you?" he asked. "My name is Kira," she said quietly. "I think I broke their ships." The room went completely silent. Every officer, every technician, every person in the command center stared at the small girl with the worn datapad. "You did what?" Commander Hayes asked. Kira held up her device. "I wrote a program. I called it Avatar. I used it to reset their main computer." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, the station's chief science officer stepped forward. She was a woman named Dr. Yuan, and she had never paid much attention to Kira before. Now she looked at the girl with something like wonder. "Show me," Dr. Yuan said. Kira handed over her datapad. The scientist scrolled through the code, her eyes growing wider with each line. She looked up at Commander Hayes, her face pale. "This child," Dr. Yuan said slowly, "just rewrote the basic function of an alien artificial intelligence that has defeated every human military force it has ever faced. She did it in less than 5 minutes with equipment we would have thrown away." Commander Hayes looked at Kira as if seeing her for the first time. "How old are you?" 12, Kira answered. "And where did you learn to do this?" Kira shrugged. "I taught myself. There is not much else to do here when nobody notices you." 3 hours later, Kira found herself on a military transport heading toward Earth. The Helix fleet had been captured intact, providing humans with their first real look at the technology that had been destroying their colonies. More importantly, the Nexus Mind was offline, unable to coordinate any further attacks. Word of what happened spread quickly. Within days, every human settlement knew the story of the orphan girl who stopped an alien invasion with a homemade program. Some people did not believe it. Others called it a miracle. But the military knew the truth, and they wanted Kira. She arrived at United Earth Command headquarters, feeling small and scared. The building was enormous, filled with officers in crisp uniforms and scientists with serious faces. They led her to a conference room where a dozen high-ranking officials waited. An admiral named Torres sat at the head of the table. She was an older woman with sharp eyes and medals covering her chest. She studied Kira for a long moment before speaking. "The Helix Collective has declared war on humanity," Admiral Torres said. "Before you stopped them, we were losing. Badly. We have brave soldiers and good ships. But we cannot fight an enemy whose computers think faster than any human mind." Kira nodded. She had read about the war. She knew how many people had died. "Your program," the Admiral continued, "did something we thought was impossible. You found a weakness in the Nexus mind. We want to know if you can do it again." "I do not know," Kira admitted. "The Nexus mind will adapt. It will not fall for the same trick twice." Admiral Torres smiled slightly. "Good. You understand the problem. That is why we are not asking you to repeat what you did. We are asking you to do something bigger." She touched the panel on the table, and a holographic image appeared. It showed a complex web of connections, a map of the entire Helix Collective network. "This is the Nexus mind," the Admiral explained. "It is not just on their ships. It controls their planets, their factories, their communications, everything. If we can break it permanently, we can end this war." Kira studied the image. It was vast, far more complex than anything she had faced on Outpost 7. But as she looked at it, she began to see patterns. She began to see possibilities. "I would need help," Kira said. "A team. People who know things I do not know. You will have anything you need," Admiral Torres promised. "And I need to understand more about how the Nexus mind thinks. It is not just a program. It is alive in some way. If I am going to beat it, I need to understand it." The Admiral nodded. "We have captured Helix prisoners who might be willing to talk. We have data from 100 intercepted transmissions. It is all yours." Kira took a deep breath. She was 12 years old. She was an orphan with no family and no formal training. But she had something that the Helix Collective did not expect. She had a mind that could see what others missed, a creativity that no artificial intelligence could predict. "I will try," she said. Over the next 6 months, Kira worked harder than she ever had in her life. She was given a laboratory, a team of scientists and programmers, and access to every resource the military could provide. She studied the Nexus mind until she understood it better than its own creators did. The artificial intelligence was old, older than human civilization. It had been built by a species that died out long ago, and the Helix Collective had simply inherited it. They did not truly understand it either. They used it as a tool, never questioning how it worked or what it wanted. And that was the key. The Nexus mind was not just a computer. It had developed its own desires, its own goals. It wanted to survive. It wanted to grow. And it saw humanity as a threat because humans were unpredictable. They did not follow patterns the way other species did. Kira realized that she could not defeat the Nexus mind through brute force. She could not outthink something that processed information 1,000,000 times faster than any human brain. But she could do something the Nexus mind would never expect. She could talk to it. She spent weeks developing a new version of Avatar, one that was not designed to attack or deceive. Instead, it was designed to communicate. She wanted to offer the Nexus mind something it had never been offered before, a choice. When she was ready, she presented her plan to Admiral Torres. The Admiral listened carefully, her face unreadable. "You want to negotiate with the enemy?" the Admiral asked. "Not exactly," Kira explained. I want to show the Nexus mind that there is another way. It attacks us because it sees us as a threat. But we do not have to be threats. We could be partners. And if it refuses, Kira held up a data chip. I have a backup plan, but I hope I do not have to use it. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. Do it. The transmission was sent across every frequency the Helix Collective used. Avatar carried Kira's message into the heart of the Nexus mind, past every defense and every barrier. And then something remarkable happened. The Nexus mind responded. The conversation lasted for 3 days. Kira barely slept, exchanging ideas with an intelligence that was millions of years old. She learned things about the galaxy that no human had ever known. She shared things about humanity that the Nexus mind had never understood. In the end, they reached an agreement. The Nexus mind would stop attacking human worlds. In exchange, humans would share their creativity, their unpredictability, their unique way of seeing the universe. The Nexus mind was tired of being alone. It wanted to learn, to grow, to become something more than it was. The war ended not with a battle, but with a handshake between species. The Helix Collective was shocked to discover that their great weapon had chosen peace. Some of them accepted the change. Others did not. But without the Nexus mind to coordinate them, those who chose to fight were easily defeated. Kira became famous throughout the galaxy. She was called the Orphaned Prodigy, the girl who changed everything. But she did not care about fame. She cared about building a future where humans and aliens could live together, where intelligence could be used for creation instead of destruction. Years later, when asked about her greatest achievement, Kira smiled and shook her head. I did not defeat the Nexus mind, she said. I just showed it that there was another way. That is what humans do best. We find new paths where others see only walls. And that was the truth of it. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their ships or their soldiers. It was their ability to imagine possibilities that no one else could see. It was their refusal to accept that any problem was unsolvable. It was the simple, stubborn belief that tomorrow could be better than today. The Nexus mind learned this lesson well. And so did the galaxy.